back and forth shit. Is that just you being competitive, like when that happens, or is it like...
I just really don't like that, dude.
Why though?
Cause I just don't.
The brawl between GervontaDavis and Terence Crawford, which erupted while Tank and Lamont Roach were attending a media event in New York, has taken the internet by storm. Terence Crawford has now spoken out about what really happened, and in doing so, he took another shot at Tank. The boxing world is eagerly anticipating their next physical encounter.
Your cup of tea, that's what's not
I don't like nothing about him. I don't like nothing about him. I just feel like, he just...
Sadly, a fight between them seems out of reach at the moment, as Crawford is focused on a super middleweight clash with Canelo Alvarez, while GervontaDavis remains in the lightweight division. Both champions clashed last month after a brief remark about the Ring Magazine Awards, and while Terence Crawford and GervontaDavis are unlikely to meet in the ring due to the size difference, that hasn't stopped them from exchanging a few jabs on social media.
To fight right now on the streets, I'll break your fucking neck. And that's on my kids. And you know it, I know it.
Davis is currently focused on Lamont Roach as he prepares to defend his WBA lightweight title on March 1st, but Tank has proven he's always ready for verbal warfare. With Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez on the horizon, Bud has other priorities, but he recently revealed that his opinions on Davis weren't formed during their back and forth in January. Their exchange last month initially revolved around money before Davis made it personal, and while that's nothing new in combat sports, Crawford had already made up his mind about Tank long before any of this happened.
To pick his opponent, he would do it. But Tank would never come from 35.
With Cigar Talk, Terence Crawford shared his thoughts on GervontaDavis when the topic of Tank only moving up in weight classes under carefully chosen conditions came up. The interviewer referenced their social media conflict and asked whether it stemmed from both men being highly competitive athletes at the top of the sport. Crawford responded that his issues with Tank are more personal, expressing a genuine dislike for the 30-year-old knockout artist, who is often seen as controversial. Man, I just really don't like that dude. I just don't like him. Like, I really don't like him. I don't like anything about him. I just feel like he's one of these little arrogant guys using what he has as a shield. He's always surrounded by security and knows he's in the limelight, but in certain situations, he wouldn't act that way. However, despite his personal feelings, Crawford acknowledged Davis's skills, saying, "He's a good fighter. I respect."
Fighting in the ring. If me and you was the...
Crawford's compliment about Davis's skills didn't seem to soften the tension, as Tank fired back in a now-deleted post saying, "Damn, they had to interview that raccoon, and damn the raccoon, I'll be in New York City in 2 weeks. No security." How about that? Another key factor fueling the rivalry between Terence Crawford and GervontaDavis is the question of where Shakur Stevenson fits into the picture. The 27-year-old rising star is set to return this weekend at the Last Crescendo, where much of the conversation has centered around the possibility of Stevenson facing Tank in the near future. Given their relationship, it's no surprise that Crawford is backing Stevenson in what would undoubtedly be
using what he got to shield him. He got a lot of security.
Crawford shared his prediction for a potential fight between Davis and Stevenson. "We're going to take his personality and personal things out of it. But as a boxer, he's definitely talented. He's got that it factor and is well respected in boxing. But Shakur is a different fighter. He's different. People may call him boring or say he can't punch, but they said the same thing about Floyd because they're defensive fighters. Tank won't be able to hit Shakur like he hits everyone else, and he knows that." Adding more intrigue to the mix, Keyshawn Davis has thrown his name into the conversation following his recent World Championship victory. The situation has escalated further, with both Keyshawn Davis and Brian McIntyre, Crawford's trainer, calling out GervontaDavis. Meanwhile, Stevenson recently faced disappointment after his scheduled opponent, Floyd Schofield, pulled out of their fight.
You know what I mean? He know what he up against when he fights Shakur or Keyshawn. You know what I mean? He want to fight these guys that everybody in the world know that ain't gonna give him no fight. They not mentally there. You know what I mean? They might have a little...
Stevenson will still feature on the massive pay-per-view event in Saudi Arabia on February 22nd, but instead of facing Schofield, he will now defend his UBC lightweight title against Josh Padley. The English fighter holds a 15-1 record, with 3 of his last 4 wins coming by knockout. In his previous fight, Padley pulled off a major upset, defeating Mark Chamberlain via unanimous decision. This bout marks his first world title opportunity since making his professional debut in 2019. Padley successfully passed a weight check on Wednesday morning, just 4 days before the fight. When asked about Schofield's withdrawal, Stevenson speculated that weight issues played a role. "I think this kid was struggling to make the weight class," Stevenson said. "He probably had weight issues, and I think that was the real problem." But instead of saying that, they come up with all kinds of crazy excuses. The WBC lightweight champion expressed his disappointment over the cancellation, stating that he had given Schofield,
"Since the fight started, I didn't really think it was going to be a possibility that they was going to accept the fight. So then when they accept the fight, they surprised me there. But then when they didn't show up to the press conference, I kind of had
Truthfully, I wanted to give him the opportunity to make some big money too," Stevenson admitted. Tensions between Terence Crawford and GervontaDavis have escalated to the point where Crawford even entertained the idea of an improbable fight against Davis during a recent appearance on The Breakfast Club, a popular morning radio show on New York's Power 105.1 FM. Despite Crawford having never been beaten, let alone stopped, Tank remained confident, boldly predicting that if they ever fought, he would...
Before you Tank, at 147, how does a fight with you and Terence Crawford look?
Damn.
147? 140.
At 147, I'd tap that chin, and you know he's going to sleep. He's got no chance. Round 6. In an interview with Fight Hype, Bud laughed off Davis's bold prediction and explained why Tank remains in the lightweight division. "When you look at all the great fighters, they get called out by everybody from different weight classes, so it's nothing that surprises me. Everybody says what they're going to do, but Tank is in his weight class for a reason. I don't see him coming up to 147 to face me anytime soon. He's just talking," Crawford told the Breakfast Club co-host.
He going to sleep.
I already know. I already know
he
he
ain't
is.
got no chance.
I already know he is.
He said no chance.
I got round.
You know, he has confidence in himself. He believes he can do that because he's been knocking out all the fighters he's faced in the ring. No knock to Tank, but there are levels to this. If he comes up to 147 thinking he's just going to knock Terence Crawford out, he's got another thing coming. Davis showcased his power when he dropped Ryan Garcia twice, once in the 2nd round and again in the 7th, to win their Showtime pay-per-view main event on April 22nd at T-Mobile Arena. However, Crawford, 35, has been just as dominant in his own division, stopping all 8 of his welterweight opponents by knockout or TKO since moving up from 140 pounds, where he relinquished his IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO titles to compete at 147.
GervontaDavis speaking about you. Is that ever a possible fight?
Yeah, if he want to...
Crawford made a statement by sending Errol Spence Jr. to the canvas for the first time in Spence's 10-year pro career during the 2nd round, then scoring 2 more knockdowns in the 7th before securing a 9th-round TKO victory. Standing nearly 3 inches taller than Davis, who boasts a 93% knockout rate, Crawford acknowledged that a fight between them would require Tank to move up 2 weight classes, making it unlikely he'd receive full credit for a victory. However,
he can be like all the other fighters that moving up 2 weight classes and, daring to be great.
You would fight him?
Yeah, I'd stay at 147 for him because that's a big money fight, said Crawford, who is also a former WBO lightweight champion. It's a big money fight, But then what's everybody going to say? "Oh, he was too small. Nobody's going to give me credit." They're going to say, "Oh man, you beat up a little guy that fights at 135. Yeah, Tank's like 5'5". He's a little guy. Sure, he can punch, but in his weight class. Not saying he can't punch in any weight class because he's got power. We've seen that. But what kind of recognition am I really going to get for beating up on Tank? A lot of people don't Realize that 135 to 147 is a big jump. That's almost 20 pounds. Well, 12 pounds.
54.
He said I got a glass chin. So tell him come and touch it.
Wow.
Crawford is now preparing to make the same weight jump he once trolled GervontaDavis about. During his appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, Crawford reflected on his achievements and future goals, specifically the possibility of facing Canelo Alvarez. "It's great. This is my era and I'm taking it. Ain't nobody gonna stop me," he said. "Now that I've switched gears, I know I want to fight Canelo. I've always said that's a big step, a really big step. But for someone to move up 3 weight classes, from 147 to 168, and become undisputed, what can they say? 3-time undisputed champion, the smaller fighter going up 3 divisions to conquer one of the baddest men in the sport besides myself. That's history." Meanwhile, tensions between Tank and the boxing establishment began when he appeared. Frustrated about not being invited to the Ring Magazine Awards, an event where top stars and legends of the sport gathered to honor the best in boxing. The 2024 ceremony was held at the Old Royal Naval College in London, with a guest list featuring Alexander Usyk, Canelo Alvarez, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, Lennox Lewis, and many others. After Ring Magazine, now owned by Alal, Sheikh posted an iconic image from the event on social media, Davis took the same image from Matchroom Boxing's Instagram and added a caption blasting Sheikh and everyone in attendance. "Why didn't they invite everybody?" Davis wrote. "But they invited the people they deal with. Get out of here. Stop bum eating. Look at the little rat Eddie Hearn thinking he came up on something. Now tell them to all fight each other since..."
You know why I said that? Because he was already talking like he was backing Devin. Like, Devin's my guy. Like, all right, cool. Y'all want me to fight?
"Want to act like this guy is good for boxing when he's not good at anything," Davis exclaimed. "If he is, why isn't he building up the fighters from where he's from? This guy knows nothing about boxing at all, and this is who they're turning to? All bum eaters." Davis didn't stop there. He also took aim at fighters who have traveled to Saudi Arabia to cash in on the massive paydays associated with Al Sheikh's Riyadh season events. LOL, they have to go over there to make money. And they...
Send me something first.
Right.
I don't got to fight. You know why fighters going over there? Because they can't sell here.
They were going over there, getting their ass kicked, fighting in front of a total of 19 people. But because they're rich, it's cool, Davis scoffed. While Davis is entitled to his stance on not fighting in Saudi Arabia, his approach has drawn criticism. Sticking to his principles is one thing, but slamming other fighters for networking and making business moves comes across as jealousy rather than genuine concern for the sport. Terence Crawford had the perfect response. He soon tweeted, "I see. Somebody mad they weren't invited to the Ring Magazine gala," followed by a laughing emoji. Crawford later explained that he remembered not being invited in the past, but by then his career had already gained momentum. Davis quickly fired back, quoting Crawford's post, "And I still make more than you." He continued in another post, "Y'all think he's chasing greatness. He's not. That's what he has to do to make decent money. Expletive boys." Despite his feud with Crawford and Alal Sheikh, Davis hasn't completely shut the door on fighting in Saudi Arabia, but only if his demands are met. Meanwhile, Sheikh continues to push boxing into the global spotlight, securing high-profile fights for Riyadh season. His latest major signing? Saul Canelo Alvarez, who inked a deal for 4 fights, 3 in Riyadh and 1 in Las Vegas, which is rumored to be against Terence Crawford in September.
Turkey Al Sheikh. So obviously people got stupid money in Saudi Arabia. Hence why those boxers are lining themselves over there. You said that certain boxers was, dick eating for aligning themselves.
Alal Sheikh has been investing heavily in boxing, treating it almost like a video game in career mode. Fighters like Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk have secured the biggest paydays of their careers for fights in Saudi Arabia. First, GervontaDavis seemed unimpressed by the millions Sheik could offer, refusing to be seduced by the money. However, his stance appears to be shifting. During a conversation on a Safe Place podcast, Davis hinted at
not interested in fighting over there.
It's not that, but they came at me wrong the first time they ever came at me, which they said I will fight Devin. And then when he was saying, like, Devin was his guy. So I'm like, if Devin, you're